In this video, we'll learn about authentication in Next.js using the nextauth. I've already created all the UI necessary to explain the nextauth. This is the home page. This is the login page, and this is the register page. Right now, user can navigate to all of our page. What I want to do is user can navigate only to this page after they have logged in, or else they can only visit the login and register page, and after the user is logged in, only they can access our other page. For that, we'll be using nextauth, and to keep the credential of user, we'll be using MongoDB database. So let's start setting up the MongoDB. Open your terminal and install Mongoose. Now, create a new file in the root with the name utils, and inside this file, create a new file, connect.js, import Mongoose. We'll set up our connection in this file. To connect with Mongoose, let's add the MongoDB URI in the env file. Create an env file in the root. Insert your MongoDB URL here. I'll insert mine later. While we are in this page, let's also set up nextauth and nextauth URL. It should be .env. Add your secret here. Let's also set up nextauth URL. Now let's add the MongoDB URI that we set up earlier. Okay, this is the MongoDB connection. Close this file and let's create a schema for our user. In the root, create a folder named modals, and inside modal, create a file name. Item modal, create a file named usermodal.js. Let's define the user schema. Type string. Username is required. Username must be unique. For email, just copy and paste it. Password must be provided, so set required is to true. Also, let's add the timestamps. Let's export the model. So this is it for the user model. Now let's handle the user input. First get the input that user types here. Let's use the use state to handle the user input. User info will be of type object with property username, email, and password. Let's add a unchanged event in the input. Let's create handle input function. Let's set the user info. Let's add onSubmit event in the form. Just create the handle submit function. As we are using the use state, this must be our client component. So add use client at the top of the file. Now let's see if we are getting our input or not. We are getting our input. Now let's create API route to send the user credential. Let's install the Nextauth. Now we should create an API folder, and inside API folder, inside auth, add a file name nextauth.js. Inside app folder, create a folder name API. Inside API, create a folder name auth, and inside auth, create a file nextauth.js. To create a register route, inside the API folder, create a file name register, and inside register folder, create a file name route.js. We'll handle the register route here. Let's import the MongoDB connection. Create a post route. Establish MongoDB connection. We can get the username, email, and password from request. Console log the username, email, and password, and return it for now. We'll add other logic later. Now open the register page. Let's check if user has provided all the credentials. Let's create a new state for error. If user has not provided all the credentials, let's add the error message at the top of button. If error, then return error message. And if the user has provided all the credentials, let's post it to the register route that we just created. For that, make this function async, and inside try catch block, let's also set the pending state to indicate that the credentials are being posted in the backend. For that, create a new state. Inside the try catch block, set the pending state to true. Now let's push the user credential in the register route that we just created. API/register method will be post. Headers will be content type, application JSON, and body will be info. But we have to stringify it before posting it. So JSON.stringify info. Now, if the response is okay, the pending state to false, and let's restart the form. And for now, let's console log user registered, else log something went wrong, set pending state to false. Let's not log it like this. Let's use the error that we are getting from the backend. Insert error with the error data.message. Inside the catch block, set pending to false. Let's set error to something went wrong. Now let's try it. Post it. Let's see our terminal. I didn't get anything in my terminal. The form is not being submitted. Let's remove this for now. Just console log it to check if this function is being executed or not. Let's try it again. This is not working. Let's see. Let's refresh. It is working. I didn't refresh my page. Something went wrong. We got our credential. Okay. Now let's remove the console log and start working on the backend. We are getting username, email, and password. So let's create a user with a username, email, and password. We don't want to keep the plain password. So let's use bcrypt to hash it. Open your terminal and install bcrypt. Let's see if the user already exists in our database. If that is the case, we'll throw an error. Oh wait, user.find1. Let's use OR operator. Email username. This will return us the user with the same username or email if it exists in our database. If exists, then return next response. To import next response here from next server. Message will be username or email already exists with the status of 500. I'm setting it to 500, but you can add the exact status code in case of an duplication. If the user does not exist, then let's ask the password and save the user in our database. Let's import bcrypt. As the password that we got. Let's add the user to our database. And return next response with a message user registered. With a status code of 201. Remove this return. And in case of an error, we'll return a next response with an error message. Status will be 500. Now let's try it. Refresh the page. Hi at gmail.com with password hi and click on register. Let's see our network tab. User is registered. Let's see it in our MongoDB. Okay, one user is created. Let's see it. So the username is hi and the email is hi@gmail.com and the password is hashed. Let's check if we can again register a user with the same username or email. Let's type the same username and a different email. but can be same, and click on register. Something went wrong. Let's see. If the user exists, then we should see this response, but we are not getting it. Here you return a response. So I added status. After this is wrong. Put it from here. Paste it here. Return next response with a message and a status code. Remove comma. Let's try it again. I anything. Click on register. Username or email already exists. Alright, our registration process is complete. Right now, after the registration, we are still in the same page. So let's push the user to the login route. Inside the register route, we are just console logging it right now. So let's push the user to the login page. For that, we have to import router from Next navigation. Use router from Next navigation. Use router. Here router dot push to the login route. Let's try it out by creating another user. Refresh the page. Let's register. We are redirected to the login page. Let's check in our DB if the user is registered or not. Refresh. So it is working now. Let's start working on the login. To handle the input, we can use the same logic as here. So I'm just copy pasting it. Copy paste all of this. Yes, also copy paste handle submit. In login, we don't need the username. We only require email and password. So remove username. Let's add on change event. Input email. Also, when we are pending, we can show the registering here instead of the register. Let's work on it quickly. In the button, it is the pending state. We defined it earlier, but we didn't use it anywhere. Let's use it here. Pending is true, then registering text also register. Also, let's disable the button when it is in the pending state. If pending is true, then disable is true. And if the pending is false, then disable is false. Don't worry, I'm gonna do exactly same in the login page. So I'll show the functionality in the login route. It is exactly the same. Let me copy it and paste it here. I think this is it. Let's remove this, we don't need it. Let's remove all of this, we don't need it. Give everything as it is. Okay, let's add on submit event and I'll submit. We don't have a username. Let's check it out. Our input, email and password. Let's try it out. As we are using use state, we have to use the use client. Refresh. Okay, let's add the email. Submit. In our console, email is not defined. Let's see. Info, email, password. Of course, email is not defined. Will be info. Let's try it out again. So you got here. So now let's start the sign in. To log in the user, we can use the sign in function from the next auth. Input it. Let's sign in the user. Credentials. This does not exist right now. We'll create it after I have finished passing it from here. Email with info.email. Password with info.password. It should be inside the try block. Remove this console log. Let's set pending state to true. Now, if there is error in the response, get error, invalid credentials, set pending to false, and return. If there is no error, then let's redirect user to the home page. Now let's start working on the sign-in functionality. Open nextauth, which is inside the API folder. We are using the credential provider. This is the example with the GitHub provider. Let's do it with the credential provider. We are using credential provider. You can find this in the documentation. For now, let's log the credential. Input credential provider. Return null in case of an error. Now we should define a place where we want the user to navigate in case they are not logged in. I just noticed it right now. The way we have written this is wrong. This should be inside the route.js file and its folder name should be nextauth. So let's correct it, cut it, delete this file. create a new folder inside the auth with name nextauth, and inside the nextauth create a file name nextauth.js and paste it here. Okay, this is how it should be. Right now, user can navigate through all of our page, but we want to protect all of our page except the login and register. If the user is not login, then they can only see the login and register route. To protect route, let's create a middleware. In the root, create a file named middleware.js. Copy this, paste it here, remove this. Now let's specify the route that we want to protect. We want to protect the root route, add route, profile route, and the update route. I'm writing the update route like this because inside update there is a folder ID, and inside ID there is a page. So to protect this route, I'm writing it like this. So now whenever the user tries to access this route, this middleware will execute and it will redirect the user to the login page if they haven't logged in yet. Let's export it. Let's verify it. Refresh the page. Let's navigate to the home route. It's redirecting me to the login page. I should be able to visit the register page again. Now let's try to navigate to the add route. We are being redirected again to the login page. It is working. Now all the routes are protected. Now let's start working on the login. Let's check it out. As you can see, we can get the user email and password here. Now let's log in the user. Let's create a function to log in the user. Let's create a function here. Connect to the database. Let's see if the user exists or not in our database. For that, let's use find one. Let's find a user whose email is equal to the credential email that we got from the sign in. Let's import the user model. Now, if the user does not exist, let's throw an error. Now, if the user exists, then we have to check the password. For that, we have to use bcrypt to compare it. Now, bcrypt will compare user credential password with the user password and returns true or false. If password is not correct, just throw an error with the wrong credential. If the password is correct, return the user. Now we have got our user. Let's return it. It's not a return null here. Now let's add some additional info to our user with the help of callback. What I have done here is I'm assigning the user info to the token, and in here token info to the session. Now a session is created with the username, email and ID with the token. Let's try it. Let's also console log it. Let's log in. And we are successfully logged in. Inside cookies, we have the session. Let's see our console. So these are the credentials that we passed from the login page. This is the token. There are some default property here like email, picture, but this is the email that we have assigned here, and the username is assigned here. So email, username and ID is being populated from here. Let's try it one more time. Register a user and then login. And click on register. We successfully created the user in the database. Now let's log in. Let me type the wrong password here. Login. So I am getting invalid credentials. Let's log in with the correct password. We are on the home page. So the authentication is working as expected. Thanks for watching.